This, you'll probably know, is a Kia EV3. Now, we like the Kia EV3. It's a great car. It's one of Kia's best electric cars, I think, that they've launched. And it's going to prove to be a very popular car. Now, when we drove the car, we were very fortunate to be asked down to Portugal to go and drive it there. It was biblically bad weather, I do remember that. But there was a couple of comments that came after in a couple of our other videos that we did, where people were sort of saying, you always seem to drive the top of the range cars, you know, the ones that are the most expensive with loads of options on it. What's the lower specification cars, the ones that people actually buy? What are they like? And of course, we can only take what manufacturers bring on these launches. We can only review what we've been given. So when the invite came to try the EV3 in the UK, and the fact that there was going to be the smaller battery Air model available, naturally, I jumped at the chance. So, without further ado, welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the 58 kilowatt hour Kia EV3 Air, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before I get started on this week's review of the Kia EV3 Air, it would be remiss of me not to ask you to make sure that you're subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you've pressed the little bell button that's down below. Why do you do that? Well, you do that because then you'll be notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched the video, if you enjoy it, and obviously I hope you do, then make sure you give it a little thumbs up, and of course don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the cars that we feature on the channel, such as the Kia EV3, and of course on the AutoEV channel as a whole. So, slightly shorter video, because obviously we've done a full road test on the EV3. How much different can the Air be with a smaller battery to the bigger battery GT line that we've already road tested? Well, there will be some differences, and I think if you're out there and you're buying a car, then maybe you'll want to know those differences. So we'll run through them with you. But as I say, it won't be the full road test review that we normally do, but a slightly shorter episode of this time. So, 58 kilowatt hour battery in this particular one. You can get the Air trim with the bigger battery like you can in the GT line, but I was quite keen to just try in its most basic specification that they had here in the UK launch of the car that we're attending at the moment. And that's exactly what I've got. As I say, smaller battery, lowest trim level. I'm very conscious that I don't want to call it the cheap one or the basic one, because over £30,000 still isn't cheap. And the equipment level that comes on the car as standard doesn't exactly make it basic, but you understand where I'm coming from. What I'm trying to say is, are you better off just choosing the one that's lower down the range? Are you really missing out on not spending a lot more money on something like the GT line or with the bigger battery? Or actually, is this more suitable for your needs? Well, of course, the only way we're going to find that out is by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that, folks, is the AutoEV one. Ingenious move by myself here. I've turned this round so you can actually now see the styling differences between the two cars. So that's a GT line there, and this is obviously is the Air specification. So you can see there are differences in the terms of the styling, and of course that's featured mostly around the front of the car. You still get this lovely sort of like new sort of like Kia design language at the front, you know, with the sort of like the star map LED daytime running lights. You still get LED headlights, but they're not the matrix design that you get in the GT line. And then of course the big feature difference is down at the bottom here. Again, still looks like a bit like a grumpy stormtrooper, but you don't have all sort of like the black bits that go coming down here and there, you know, right down at the bottom. There's a bit more body colour working down here, and you've got almost like this matte kind of silver finish just across the top of the number plate. It's a bit cleaner looking in some respects. I do quite like that. This is the only standard colour that's on the car, sunset orange, which I do think works quite well on it. It looks quite nice, of course, with the contrasting black where you get with the wheel arches and the black in the headlights there, and as you'll see around the rest of the car. So I do think it works. But yeah, as I say, it's still a good looking car no matter what trim level that you go for. So you're not exactly missing out when it comes to the looks on the car, are you? Inside profile, there's less of a difference. The only real difference that's going to be a big standout feature is the size of the wheels. 17-inch alloys come as standard on the Air. You go up to 19s when you go to the GT line. The only other thing is the lack of privacy glass on the back windows there. But you still get, as I say, the contrasting black around the wheel arches, down the side. And this area here that I always reminds me of the BMW i3, which I think is, I am being complimentary, I hope, towards Kia when I say that, because I really think the i3 was a car that was way ahead of its time. And of course the interior space of the EV3 is one of the big plus points of the car, and that's making it sort of, like, dare I suggest, more of a sort of boxy type of shape. And that's where you get this much longer roof line and the more upright back to the car rather than a sloping rear end that a lot of manufacturers go for. So Kia have really thought about that, and they say they've got this sort of more upright rear end to the car. But I do like this rear area here. In comparison with another new car that's out, say the Skoda Elrock, which is a very, very similar size of car and will compete with this car in the marketplace, the way I described it to someone was, I think the Skoda is a car for today, whereas the EV3 seems like a bit of a car for tomorrow in the way that it looks. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's how I feel about it when I look at it. There's a bit more futuristic, there's a little bit more. The Skoda is very nice, it's very good, but it's very recognisably a Skoda, whereas the EV3 really just pushes the boundaries a little bit more. And as I say, irrespective of what trim level you go for, that's the style that you get, and I really like it. You still get these gloss black roof rails as well, which is handy as well. So if you are looking at the car, you know, as the main car in the family, which there's no reason that it shouldn't be, because it's good enough and it's big enough, then obviously you can still carry, you know, things on the roof as well. You know, if you put bike racks on, or skis, or roof boxes if you go away on holiday and stuff. So there's still that, and you still got quite a lot of tech on the car, as we'll see as we go around it. But yeah, inside profile, there's even less of a difference. And the back is like the front. It's just that little lower section there where there's less contrasting black trim, where you still get this matte silver finish across the top of the back bumper there. You still get, again, the LED rear tail lights that you do with the GT line car. You still get the lovely embedded reverse camera that's on the window trim that's round there. You still get this nice slimline LED high level brake light, and you still get a rear wiper, which is beautifully tucked up underneath the big rear roof spoiler. So yeah, in terms of how the car looks, are you really missing much? Now, maybe some people are going to prefer less of that sort of contrasting black and body colour. With the GT line, you'll see the contrasting black is a gloss black, whereas on the Air model, it's a matte plastic, an unpainted plastic. But again, there's a practicality with that, you know, for maybe picking up the odd ding in a car park or the odd scrape as you try to manoeuvre out past shopping trolleys and things. You know, you're less likely to scratch paintwork than you are with Air than you are with maybe, say, the GT line. So maybe there's a practicality with going for the Air model. So that's the styling differences, folks. That's it. As I say, it's very, very little. It's the different size in wheels, the lack of privacy glass, the fact that you get the plain plastic rather than the painted gloss black around it, and I say there's less contrasting trim at the front and rear of the car. Is all of that enough for make you tempted to go up into a GT line, or do you actually prefer the Air model? Have you bought one? Have you ordered one? Have you ordered an Air and wish you'd gone for GT line, or the other way around? Let me know in the comment section down below. Okay, practicality wise, well, there's not going to be any difference here at all, is there? Save for the fact you've got to open the boot yourself. But in fairness, it's a bit of a first world issue. 460 litres of boot space, which is very good. You know, that's a decent size of boot for the car. But like the other Kias, I always feel they're a little bit on the shallow side between the boot floor and the parcel shelf, the roller blind. So that's the only downside with it. Standard 60-40 split rear seat, that'll take total capacity up to 1,250 litres. So, you know, all good. But it's what's nice about it is the load height's just right, I think. You know, it's just around about the top of your thighs there, you know, if you're shorty like me. So loading suitcases in or stuff you've been to the garden centre or whatever isn't hugely laborious in that sense. And also, if you're thinking about it from the point of view, say, push chairs or wheelchairs as well, you know, because this might be a popular car in Motability, you've got to think, do you need to get a wheelchair in it? Then actually loading the boot isn't too bad, in fairness. There is a huge amount of underfloor storage, however. A massive amount of underfloor storage. So you can, in some respects, you can take that boot floor down to give you that extra height, but then obviously you've got that lip to drop things down into, but at least it does give you extra height for when you've done that from that point of view. So, and again, if you're folding the rear seats, because they don't fold completely flat as such, you're better off having it in the higher position when you fold them down, and then that's the level load through. But otherwise, practicality doesn't suffer. Now, one of the benefits, I say, of that styling, that boxier shape, is it makes there's a huge amount of room in the rear, but it also makes the door frame that little bit, they're able to make the door frame that little bit bigger. So entry and exit is a lot easier in the car. You're also just stepping across into it because it's got that nice little raised ride height. So the door opens up to quite a decent sort of like angle. And so if you're loading children in, or as I say, you've got people, passengers maybe of limited mobility, then getting in and out of the rear is actually quite easy, in that fairness. And of course, the other thing that you get as well with the seats with the Kia, you've got these grab handles here which help, you know, people just sort of like getting in and out of the car. So you're literally stepping across into it. Now, there's no difference, obviously, as you'd expect, in the rear accommodation of the car, which is very, very good still. You know, you've got the airline style mat pockets on the backs of the front seats. You've still got the fold down armrest with cup holders as well. You've still got decently shaped door bins for water bottles. You've still got USB-C connectivity, which are on the backs of the front seats. There's still a little ornament tray that's down there for throwing a packet of polos in. You know, and the IC fixed points are still nice and easy to get to. So no, there's no real compromise, obviously, going for this lower specification trim level. The only thing that I will say is the plastic that they use in the cars, which is, it's still nicely put together and screwed together. There is an area of, there's an awful lot of the grey plastic on the car. And whereas in the higher trim levels where they've got the material that covers the backs of the front seats, these ones aren't. They're just left open plastic. So that's maybe a little bit of the downside. You're left with a bit more of a sea of grey in some respects. And obviously you don't get things such as like heated rear seats in the Air model. But otherwise, there's not really an awful lot to complain about back here. It's still as roomy as all the other EV3s, as it should be. And it's still a really nice place to be. So if you've got kids, as say, you're loading into the back, or elderly people, it's a nice place to sit. And again, up here, there's changes, there are noticeable differences, but are they important? Well, only you're going to be able to decide that in some respects, depending obviously on what you want from a car. You still get this brilliant sort of like, you know, 3-screen setup that you get across all the EV3s. So you have the driver information display here, then you've got this central strip which is the climate control, and then you've got your infotainment screen across here. Okay, so you still get you know, things like, now let me just check, I apologise, I am just going to have to very quickly look at this, because I know I was about to say, is the Apple CarPlay wireless? It is Apple. You still get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so you still get that. Okay, so that will still be up here, and you still get the physical controls down here. So you don't have to use this central screen here to sort of like, you know, use the climate control, because you get the physical buttons for temperature either side, and then your fan speed in the center, sorry, in this one here. So it's nice that you've got those physical controls there. Plus you've then got the shortcut buttons along here. So again, you know, if you want to go straight to map, because obviously you get an embedded satellite navigation system with the car, that's standard. You know, your media setup, you just press that, it goes you straight there. Oh, look, just turn that volume down, there we go. You've got your favorites button there. And then your setup button there. So that's what you get, you know, there's no real, you don't feel shortchanged, and the screen itself is still as good and as slick and easy to use as you'd expect. You can obviously use this center screen in here, you know, so again, if you want to have, you know, certain things, you know, synced up driver only, you know, you can really open it up. You see that button there? So if you do the plus thing, it really opens up the climate control screen there to allow you to adjust it on the big screen if you want, or you can just retain the standard buttons that's down there. So it's up to you. Driver instrument, I'll start again. The driver instrumentation cluster is as clear and legible as you want. There's a different design of steering wheel here. You've got the 2-spoke design wheel. There is an overwhelming feeling of greyness. That's the only thing I will say. You know, it's nice, the materials are nice, you know, and there's a big message of sustainability with Kia, as you know. There's a little QR code down in the corner. If you scan that, it will give you I think it's the 10 must-haves that Kia have set themselves out, you know, that they've got to have in every car that they build, you know, in terms of the recycled materials and stuff, and it'll tell you more information if you scan that QR code. But as I say, there is a bit of an overwhelming of greyness. That's all I'm going to say with it. You know, it might have been nice to maybe see different colours employed, or maybe the dashboard to be all black, or something like that just feels a little bit grey to me here. But the functionality you can't complain about. You know, everything works exceptionally well. You've got a nice sort of like central volume control there as well. You know, there's enough physical buttons along here. The physical buttons that are grouped on the steering wheel work all really, really well. The one thing Kia are doing now that I really do like is if you press and hold the volume button on the steering wheel, it turns off your speed limit warning. And then of course your lane keep assist, the other one I don't particularly enjoy using, that's a press and hold of that button there. Your drive modes are up on the steering wheel there. You know, again, they're just a thumb press away, and the cruise control and everything's easy to reach. And again, you don't feel that you're getting less equipment. As I say, you still get your wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you still get your driver drowsiness monitor, you still get heated seats and heated steering wheel in this car, which, you know, is fantastic, albeit obviously just up at the front. You know, there's still you know, sort of like auto hold. There's still a reversing camera as well, a plethora of USB ports down there. The only thing you don't get is wireless charging. You don't get wireless charging for your mobile. The other thing you don't get is this slide out table thing. Now, it's quite, I must admit, maybe I was a little bit, I'm not saying blinded by it, but maybe I thought to myself, oh, that's quite a clever idea. You know, this, actually, in fairness, what you get with the standard Air is a bit more storage. You know, so you get this area here, you know, where you can lift up obviously the lid. There's a storage bin there, there's a storage bin in the front as well, and then there's a vast bit of storage down at the bottom there with cup holders, and then a nice sort of like rubberized mat there. So maybe actually in some respects this is slightly better because there's a lot more storage at the front. And also you've got door bins that are shaped to take water bottles as well, so that's obviously quite handy too. As I say, the steering wheel itself has changed. The group of controls around it haven't. You've obviously got lights and wipers, obviously either side and column stocks, and then you've got the two paddles behind the steering wheel as well to adjust the brake regeneration. And that's really about it. That's what they've done. Obviously, you don't get, you know, the fancy kind of seat trim, but the seats themselves are still very, very nice. They've got this nice sort of like cloth, almost like wool blend seat material, which is nice, albeit it is grey, but with little blue kind of vinyl accents in it that I do quite like. See, again, there's a lot of that blue. Maybe they should have put more of it around the car. Maybe that would have helped. Oh, I don't know. So yeah, the seats, they're comfortable. You know, I've been out driving the car, it still is comfortable, it still feels nice to drive, all the rest of it. So yeah, there's not a huge amount to be compromised in here. I just wish there wasn't quite so much greyness to it. That's the only thing. Maybe a bit of colour to liven it up. Certainly with the GT line, you get, you know, the different colours and it livens it up a little bit. Not so much here. But it certainly doesn't feel like a basic car, is what I'm trying to say. Maybe rather inelegantly. Now the Air is the trim where you get the smaller 58 kilowatt hour battery. Okay, so you get slightly less range than you get in the EV3 that we've tested before. Still a good range, however, 270 miles according to WLTP figures. And again, we know the efficiency with Kia, they tend to be very, very decent. So, you know, maybe in the milder months, you may be looking at maybe around about 240 miles, maybe sort of the colder months that we're in at the moment, then maybe it's going to dip below sort of like that, maybe around about 220, 230, but they do tend to be quite efficient. And in fairness, you know, that's what Stellantis Group have been offering now for quite some time. You know, the 50 kilowatt hour batteries are around about 250 miles of range, so you know, anything more than that is obviously going to be a bonus. Okay, obviously you don't get things such as 800 volt architecture on the car. However, you can still go the charging speeds of the car, I think 128 kilowatts, and it still means that because obviously it's a slightly smaller battery, it's still at 10 to 80% charge in 28 minutes. So again, exactly as we'd expect for that type of thing. If you're charging up at home from your home wall box, it's a 7 kilowatt wall box that you've got, then you're going to go from flat to full in around about 12.5 hours. The car also is capable of charging at 11 kilowatts as well, so it's got an onboard 11 kilowatt charger as standard. So if you do have that faster phase electricity or access to it, then certainly you can drop that time down. I think it's down to around about 7 and a bit hours. Vehicle to load, however, is only available on GT Line S, as is heat pump. So if you're looking for those two things, they're not available on the Air model. Well, at the moment, the EV3 only comes with a choice of one driveline, which is a single motor mounted up at the front, 201 horsepower, so 0 to 60 in 7.5 seconds, which I always think that is a bit of a benchmark in some respects. And the reason I always think that was because I remember when the Kia e-Niro came out, you know, and it was around about 201 horsepower, 7 and a bit seconds to 60, and I always thought that feels plenty fast enough for a family car of that size, and I don't think that really has changed in my opinion. So I always think as long as they're that sort of ilk, as long as they're round about those sort of figures, then actually you don't really need much more. Obviously you want more, but do you need it? I don't think so. I don't think you do. So there's not really a huge amount of difference in the way that this EV3 drives, the Air drives, to the GT line that, you know, that I drove at its launch. But I thought, you know, it's worthwhile just going out and taking it for a little drive. Now we're in the UK as well. If you remember, I was out in Portugal driving the EV3 and it was biblical rain. Mind you, it's not much better now. You know, but obviously it's different when you get a right-hand drive car on UK roads, you know, maybe in an area that, you know, maybe your opinion of it will change. So has it? No, not at all. This is still a brilliant car. It is absolutely fantastic, this car. And the one thing that I always take away from it is, you know, it feels like a much bigger car than it actually is. You know, this feels like quite a substantial, well-built, very refined car. You know, but it's still in a sort of like an overall small footprint, if you like. That's the one thing that really sort of impresses me about it. You know, it is a fabulous little car to drive. I'm saying little, I'm being told it's not actually that little now. The ride quality obviously is slightly different to the first car that I drove. Now the car I drove obviously in Portugal was on the bigger wheels because it's a GT line, and obviously the roads are different out there. These roads I'm on at the moment are quite smooth in fairness, but I know that I'm coming up to a road that's a little bit more pockmarked, so it will be interesting to see. But at the moment, from first initial impressions, there's a bit more compliancy in it because obviously you've got a lower profile, a bigger profile tyre on it, and you've got a lower size of wheel. So you know there's bound to be that element of it that is going to help the car, and it certainly does. You know, it does ride really nicely, this little car. I've got to stop saying this little car. It rides nicely, this car. But it's the refinement that's still sort of like, you know, really is head and shoulders for me. That's the thing that really stands out, you know, when I drive the EV3, is how refined it feels. And that's a big thing, you know, because, you know, Kia was saying at the launch, you know, they see this not being, you know, some people say, you know, the smaller EVs they produce, ideal second car in the family, blah, blah, blah. Kia going, no, it's over £30,000. It's not a second car. This could be the main car. You know, there's no reason why it can't be the main car in the family. And they're absolutely right. I would quite happily drive this with, you know, Liz, my partner, Katie, my daughter, and Finley, the dog, with luggage in the back, and go up to Scotland to see my mum, or down on our holiday to Cornwall, or whatever. No reason why I wouldn't. Now, this is interesting. This is this bit of road surface here that was really pockmarked, and actually, that's pretty good. This is a really rough piece of road. Yeah, I'm quite impressed by that. You can hear it more than you can feel it almost, if that makes sense. You can hear the suspension working, and you can hear the tyre sort of like, you know, sort of like rumbling along the road, but you can't feel it as much. And I'm going down here at a steady 45. That's impressive. This is nice to drive this car on the UK roads, because it's making me realise actually Kia really have done well with this car. I knew it was refined, but I didn't realise how comfortable that it was when I was driving it out in Portugal. Yeah, I'm impressed by this. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the refinement it's really good, very good, very good. The performance is adequate, as I said before. There's no reason to go over and above that. So let's talk about the other little things that we always discuss. So we've done suspension, we've done performance, that's all good. Brakes are nice. Brakes have got I think they've got a nice front push. They're better than I'd say than a Skoda Elrox. You know, the Elrox was alright. There was time where it's maybe a little bit grabby or a bit spongy at times, you know, depending obviously where you were. But on the whole, I would say the brakes in this are better. Now you've got the usual brake regen there, which you can adjust, obviously as you can with Kia. So you've got level 1, level 2, level 3, and then you've got what they call the I pedal, you know, sort of like, you know, you know, where it judges itself, you know, in terms of stuff like that. So that's good. So it varies the regen and depending obviously on what you need it to do. So you've got a good level of adjustability with the regen, and again, it's still one of the best. You do it via the paddles behind the steering wheel, nice and easy to do, no problems at all there. You've also got a driver drowsiness alert, or driver alert monitor, or whatever they want to call it, on top of the steering wheel. That's this little camera that's here, which is becoming law, which is a real pain in the neck. But you've got that there, so if you're wondering what that is when you drive the car, that's what it is there. The dash is nice and easy to read. Actually, I quite like this steering wheel. The steering wheel on the other car, it's odd. Well, they've put it in the EV6 now, and if you've watched the EV6 video, you'll see I wasn't quite sure of it in terms of that, whether it matched the style of the car. It's all right to hold, it's all right, but actually I do quite like this more simple two-spoke layout. This is quite good. Okay, so we've got different drive modes. We've got the usual Eco, Normal and Sport. Let's pop it into Sport. Yeah, it's not blisteringly fast. It's not blisteringly fast, but it's quick. Let's call it that. It's warm hatch territory rather than hot hatch territory, which is exactly what you would expect for this style of car. If we go back into Eco mode, yeah, you've got to be much more deliberate with the accelerator pedal in Eco mode. No, I would just stay out of that. Just keep it in Normal or Sport. The two other ones you've got is My Drive, where you can set a profile up and it will change to do that. And then obviously you've got a Snow mode as well. Now, you know, that might be quite handy if you live in, you know, a European country where you obviously do get snow. We don't tend to get a lot of snow, not in the south of England anymore. But you know, if you stick a set of winter tires on a car, then maybe that might be just the ideal thing for you. That would maybe just give you enough. And you can be a bit more deliberate with the accelerator. You know, it doesn't dump a load of torque at the front wheels, you know, immediately. So that's good. It'll allow you to be just a little bit more deliberate with the accelerator. And that's about it. There really isn't an awful lot of difference between this and obviously the GT line car that I've driven. Nor would I expect it to be in some respects. But I am impressed more now I've driven it in the UK with the ride quality. And I was impressed with it first. I'm really impressed with it now. Would you feel shortchanged going for the Air model over the GT line? Not sure you would, in fairness. I mean, the one thing I will say, I would you know, being a Scot, I'm all for value for money. I'm all for saving the odd pound or two. Let's be honest. But I do think that the GT line has a slightly more premium feeling interior. That's the one thing that I will say. Now, when I drove the Kia EV3 Air as opposed to the GT line, I did sort of say then, oh, you know, there's not really a massive load of difference. It's still a good car, blah, 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 blah. And it is, there's no doubt about that. I think in the EV3, the more premium feel of the GT line might sway me a little bit. I have to admit that. You know, there is just an awful lot of grey in here. That's all. I do like that interior of the GT line you get with the EV3 with the two-tone seats. It just lifts it a little bit. And obviously you don't get a sunroof in there, which I quite like. I always like a glass sunroof. But in terms of the way it drives, no, not at all. You don't feel shortchanged at all. At all would you feel shortchanged. And as I say, with the range of, you know, sort of like 220, 230 miles in the real world, what else do you expect? You know, that's going to be enough for most people, I would think. It doesn't detract, put it this way, from being an absolutely brilliant new electric car from Kia. It's still bloody brilliant. Well, pricing's nice and easy. It's $32,995 if you go for this standard sunset orange, which is the only standard paint colour in the range. Other than that, all you're adding on is the cost of one of the metallic finishes. But in fairness, I quite like this colour. Now for $32,995, as I say, all the equipment we've talked about is standard. You know, the wireless Apple CarPlay, the Android Auto, Bluetooth, the embedded sat-nav, heated seats, heated steering wheel. So it's not exactly a basic car, is it? And as I say, I'm very conscious of not using the word basic, you know, or cheaper, or let's call it less expensive, let's call it lead-in model, or however we do it. But you still get an awful lot of equipment for your money. And of course, don't get me wrong, $32,995, whilst it is, you know, good value for money for the size of car and the type of car that it is, it's still a lot of money for a car for a lot of people. So we are aware of that. What makes it even better, dare I suggest, value for money is the fact, of course, that it comes with Kia's legendary 7-year warranty on the vehicle as well, which comes across as standard as well. So in other words, I think this is a real price-led model in this market space. Competition. Now this is interesting because when we went to the original press conference of the EV3, they said it's a B segment crossover SUV. And when I put that into the video, and a lot of people have said, it's too big to be a B segment car, Brian, it's a C segment car. I'm only saying what Kia told us that it competes with, okay? I apologise if I have got it wrong, then I am sorry. But, you know, they see competition from the other B segment cars, such as obviously the Stellantis Group cars. Now, especially with the $32,995 lead-in price, then it's priced up against cars such as Fiat 600e, Jeep Avenger, Peugeot 2008, Vauxhall's Mocha, you know, those style of cars. And it does feel a bigger car than those. There's no getting away from that, it certainly does. Skoda's Elroq, you know, that's another car, again, we're saying, oh, it's, you know, it's a B segment SUV, but actually in terms of its size, it's more like a C segment car. But that competes, I think, you know, with this car very squarely, you know, in terms of its size, in terms of battery options, in terms of range as well. So that's a real key competitor for the EV3, as is things like the smart #1 and of course Volvo EX30, which again, you know, they are positioned as B segment SUVs. So the lines are being blurred, is what I think I'm trying to say, you know, between the sectors now, because people are making sort of like bigger cars priced as smaller cars and various different things like that. So, but there's certainly some of the competition for you to consider if you're looking at the EV3. Now, the other thing as well, when it comes to competition, the Kia see it stealing sales from some of the C-sector hatchbacks as well, because of its size, because of the amount of space that it offers. So maybe things such as Volkswagen ID3, Renault Megane E-Tech. The one car I didn't mention in that previous one, in the previous EV3 video, on my Elroq video, of course, was the new Renault 4. I completely forgot about that car. That's coming next year. That's going to be a car that's going to compete with as well. So bigger than the 5, you know. So again, you know, that small segment of sort of family crossover, the Renault 4. Volkswagen ID3, as I say, Renault Megane E-Tech, perhaps Cupra Born in its lower trim levels as well. So there's plenty out there, you know, this sort of like lower, sort of like, you know, sub sort of like £36,000 that still going to compete with this car. But I still think this Air model offers really good value for money in comparison with a lot of those cars. Is the Kia EV3 Air any less of a brilliant car than the EV3 that we road tested a little while back? Absolutely not, because all the attributes that we love about that car are still present in this trim level. Yes, okay, it has a smaller battery, but most people are still going to get by, I think, with a range of around about 250 miles, certainly in this market space. And of course, you still get Kia's legendary warranty, and it's still a really well-equipped car as standard. You know, you still get such things such as the wireless Apple CarPlay, the Android Auto, the heated seats, the heated steering wheel, you know, those great screens, the comfort, the storage. Yes, the interior maybe feels a little bit less premium than that car, but in some respects, that probably won't matter to an awful lot of people. And all that the Air model now does is broaden the appeal of what was already a brilliant car to even more people. Thank you for watching another road test review, a shorter road test review on this week's AutoEV. As always, please make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel, and also make sure that you've pressed the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you'll receive notification of when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed this video, then of course make sure you give it a little thumbs up, and of course don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the cars we review, such as Kia's EV3 on the channel and of course on AutoEV as a whole. Have you ordered an EV3? Are you thinking about it? Were you wanting to know what the basic car was like before you pushed the button? Have we answered all your questions? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now remember, we're also across all social media platforms as well, so Facebook, X, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, so please give us a follow there as well because that helps us. And remember, if you're in the marketplace for an electric car, it might not be a new EV3, maybe you're looking at a pre-owned Kia e-Niro, but you want to know all the rest there is to know about the car before you go and push the button. How are you going to find out? Well, what you do is you stay on the AutoEV YouTube channel, just at the top there's a little magnifying glass. If you type the name of the model you're interested in there, then if it's been a new electric car in the UK in the last 4 or 5 years, then we'll have put it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that, folks, is the AutoEV one. Thank you again for watching. Thanks again for supporting the channel. I'll see you again soon.